Hel- Hello and welcome to a very special What We're Watching Weekly Extra. I am Gregor Sprague, here today to talk about The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I watched it yesterday, and I don't understand what's up with a lot of the hate slash dislike is about. Um, basically, um, basically, I really enjoyed the movie. I I don't think I think with a lot of the people at first they thought, like, with when you hear about all the villains that were going to be involved, they're like, oh no, this is going to be like Spider-Man 3 where you had Venom and Sandman and Harry Osborn as Hobgoblin, and there's just too many villains in there. I sort of saw that, but not really, because what I saw with this, I saw it more as Mark Webb and the writers and the producers setting up a bigger world, a bigger world for for Spider-Man, because you have to keep in mind Sony only has the Spider-Man property and all his rogues gallery that included. Now keep in mind that is a big rogues gallery, but that is still very limiting, especially when you know it's it's still, you're not going to get the interactions, you're not going to get the avenging Spider-Man storylines that you normally would get in the comics, or you're not going to see him in the Avengers, or even in the X-Men like you would in the comic books, sort of deal. But overall, my thoughts, and like you see in the description below, the first half will be spoiler free. Um, and at first, and if you've talked to me in real life, I thought at first that the trailers, some of the TV spots, spoiled the movie for me, and I'll get to that in a second. I will get to that in particular in a second, because I have some very harsh words on that. But I will say this about The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I really, really enjoyed this movie. It was really well done. This takes place, I think, a little bit after. I think it's like almost the next summer afterwards. Peter Parker is almost haunted for a little bit in the beginning by Gwen Stacy's dad, and I'm blanking on his name, and I apologize. And I'm a fan of Spider-Man. Spider-Man is my first hero, my first Marvel hero. It's actually superhero that I fell in love with as a kid. Like it was like growing up, it was like I loved Spider-Man. It wasn't Batman, it wasn't Superman, it was Spider-Man, and it was because he was smart, but yet he was almost lazy in a way. And this is where I really enjoy this version more than the Sam Raimi version. No, and it's not to say that one is better than the other. It's like if you were to combine the two, if you were to combine the Amazing Spider-Man and the Sam Raimi Spider-Man, you would have the comic book version. But um, but anyways, back to the movie. Um, you start off right away with more about the father, more about Richard Parker, and the mystery behind all that stuff. And that stuff was interesting to me as well. I'm like, ooh, we're gonna dive deeper. Ooh, yay, and all this. And I enjoyed that. I'm like, okay, and you even saw we assume how he died. And then we go into him fighting who I assumed at first was this was like, okay, so this is how he fights the Rhino. Um, and there'll be spoilers afterwards and all this, and then we go on, and it's a lot of his mergers. This is one of the weird things I think Mark Webb and the writers nailed with Spider-Man is he his quippiness, and I think it was the first. It was I think it was the Super Bowl trailer where you see the scene, and this happens fairly early on in the movie where he's come in, and this happens in the cartoon show in the 90s as well, where he's in the bed, he's still in the Spider-Man outfit, but he's in the bed, like hiding from Aunt May, like because he's got the Spider-Man outfit on, but he's like, "Don't come in, I'm naked," and you just see his head, and he's got all this ash and soot on his face because he was helping out at a burning building, and she's like, "What's all over your face?" "Oh, I was cleaning the chimney." "We don't have a chimney." What? It's that quippy sarcasticness that they nailed, that I love about Spider-Man. That was so different, but also that I loved from the comic books with Superior Spider-Man. It was a different take. It was Doc Ock, and how you see Doc Ock just change things with the Superior Spider-Man book. But that's a whole different video that I can do for days and days and days. Um, and also people are bashing. I'm gonna talk about this for a little bit. People are bashing, saying that this is a failure. This movie is a failure. I don't think it is. For comparing opening weekends, this movie only made $3 million less than Captain America: The Winter Soldier. That's not a failure. That's to me, that's on par. You know, that's to me is the equivalent. I mean, that's almost the same as I think Draft Day. I think Draft Day didn't make too much more than that. And I only know this because if you watch what we're watching weekly or Galactic Netcasts, we are doing the movie draft from Night Attack and I think it's Night Attack, Daily Tech News Show, um, Padre SJ from Twit. They're all from the NSFW. They're doing their movie draft, and we're basing it from there. And so we've done that, and it's like that's not a failure. And I could see getting my team caught up to Dave's team with that very well, but that's a sidetrack here. But that's my spoiler free review here. Now for spoilers, and I'm going to, just to make it clear, sorry, there's no talking here, so that's spoilers, dearie. Doctor Who reference, haha. But no, so I'm gonna start off. The TV ad or the TV spot I'm talking about is, I saw one, and there were some mentions earlier while the movie was being made, and I think the movie was all made in New York, which I love because that's how it has to be. Spider-Man is New York. There were some where he's on another planet, or he's in Boston for a little bit, or he's in this place or this place for a little bit, which is fine. But when you say Spider-Man, you say New York. Much like when you say Batman, it's Gotham City. You say Superman, it's Metropolis. You say Flash, it's Central City. It's, that's where he's from. That's where he's at. Sort of deal. And it was a TV spot where they were showing Gwen Stacy falling, and I'm like I think one scene they show the Goblin, and I didn't mind, that it was Harry Osborn. I'm like, okay, there's gonna be some little difference here, and you can't expect it to be the same in the comic book from the comic books, because if they do that, then it's like, well, the comic book fans would be like, well, I've read this movie, I don't need to go pay my 2 bits. Oh well, and then they don't. Then you lose your money. You lose the money. You don't make the $92 million that you made the opening weekend. Um, So with it being Harry, that was fine for me. But there, it was, her falling through the window. I'm like, okay, the location changed a little bit, but they just showed Gwen Stacy's death scene. And there's a spoiler because Gwen Stacy does die in there, and I'm warning you with saying spoilers on here. And I thought for sure, I'm like, okay, Gwen Stacy dies. I just spoiled the movie for myself, and I was livid for a little bit. So I'm watching it, and I'm like, okay, maybe I was completely wrong for that part, and I was. That was not where she dies. But yeah, and this is where I love Mark Webb because the part where she does die, and he sticks true to the comic. If you've read the comic and you know how she dies, it's fairly accurate to how she dies in the movie. Spider-Man, like she's falling through the clock tower, all this stuff, and it's Peter Parker, last ditch effort. Web, you see the web go and form a hand. You see it sort of form a hand, very brilliantly done, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this just looks so brilliant. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, no. And then when it happened, I'm like, oh gosh, just so touching, so heartbreaking for me. Like watching this, and like I mean, I'm like even talking about this now. I'm like, oh my goodness. Um, and this is and so I'm gonna talk about some of the stuff that sort of irked me from before from like reading the news. Jimmy Fox was brilliant as Electro, and this is one of the things that I don't want to say up in arms, but was a little bit leery of, with him being Electro, who was traditionally white. Max Dillon is white in the comic books. Now, I'm not saying I'm racist at all. I'm not. That's not what I'm playing. I'm not playing it like, oh, they have to be the same race. Blah blah blah. Excuse me. Whatever. That's not what I'm trying to play at, at all. It's more of, okay, here. I'm curious as to how they're going to go with this more than anything else. And so I go, but I was like, okay, I'm going to go with this. Jamie Foxx is a brilliant actor, and he did a great job. It was very interesting with the origin story, especially with I'm not familiar with how Max Dillon. I think it's more of a Max Dillon is a criminal sort of deal, but making him a fanboy, making him, he was very much invisible, very much wanting to be seen, sort of a deal, wanting to, which making someone who wants to be seen Electro, very smart sort of deal. And also jumping over the spandex costume, and and more like, and jumping straight to electricity. That was brilliant. Like jumping straight over the green and yellow tights thing from the comic books, and straight to the blue, looking like basically living electricity. That was brilliant. The costume designer, Mark Webb, whoever it was at Sony that decided that. The other villains, Rhino, Paul Giamatti. I hope he does not get recast. He was brilliant as the Rhino. The Rhino was underused. Harry Osborn was underused. I forget his name, how he pronounced his name. It's like Dane DeHaney or whatever. He's brilliant. They're setting up. This is another setup movie. Spider-Man 1 was the setup for Peter Parker. It was telling the origin story, which a lot of people are like, oh, it didn't need to be done because we just had Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, and Spider-Man 3, which told the origin story. But this was telling it differently. This was telling it, how Mark Webb wanted to tell it, which is good. I loved it. I still love it. this is setting up this bigger universe sort of deal. This is setting up how in the comics Peter Parker has to deal with a whole bunch of crap. Peter Parker has to deal with the fact that, you know, going down Broadway, he might have to deal with Mysterio. Then he hits, Times Square, and it could be Kraven the Hunter, and then, Kraven might be, Kraven might be in Central Park, and then Times Square, it might be the Green Goblin, and, all within the same time period, within one trip to the Daily Bugle, sort of deal. And that's what they're setting up, and that's what I cannot wait for. The Easter eggs in there are brilliant. The fact that it's almost, with how they're setting up, it was almost destiny that Peter Parker became Spider-Man was brilliant. The fact that they made it to where the whole secret project that Richard Parker was working on with Norman Osborn, where he made it where it was his DNA that, with the spider, the whole spider project thing, was great. This whole Sinister Six thing that they're leading up to could be really good. I don't know. It's a very much still a setup movie. We're going to get a bigger payoff on down the road. So, all in all, this is a great movie. Go, and I'm not saying check it out because I have it in the What We're Watching Weekly / Galactic Netcast Summer Movie Draft. That's an added perk. I'm saying as a Spider-Man fan, as a comic book fan, as a movie fan, this is great stuff. Go out and watch it. It's a great movie. So, I'm Gregor Sprague. This has been a What We're Watching Weekly Extra. Take care.